You know, I'm ashamed to say that for much of my life, I've made decisions rather passively, but it's really important to stand your ground. A lot of the motivations for my decisions in the past were actually so that I wouldn't bother people, that I wouldn't get in the way, that I would make sure that everybody else was doing fine, but completely to my own detriment. And there's been a little bit of a let's call it a situation. There's been a bit of a situation this morning because it's a bit of an unusual setup. It's a weird design quirk of the building, the apartment block that I live in. 12 flats, but every single flat has its own garage or carport, but mine, I have a shared garage with another flat, and you know, for whatever reason, that's the way that it is. And this morning, well, actually early this afternoon to be precise, I was waiting for a food delivery, and I was going out onto the landing of my little section, and I noticed that, and looking out the window to see if the van was driving by, and I noticed that the garage door was open because I can see it from this window on the landing, and there was a car parked in there, and which is a bit out of the ordinary because the lady that I share the garage with, her sister visits once a week at an agreed time, as I was informed even before I bought the flat, but there was this car in there, and I went down to sort of see what was going on. Was a contractor or something, you know, whatever. I just thought, oh, this is out of the ordinary. And incredibly, on my half of the garage, I have gym equipment in there, and they've taken it upon themselves, without consulting me at all, to move said gym equipment. And obviously my initial reaction was being really was surprised and pissed off. I'm not gonna lie, really just what the fuck. And I went back into my flat and just was steaming for a little bit, and then I went back out onto the landing, and as it happened, the lady who lives in the other flat was walking out with her, well, what appears to be her nephew, and they were getting back into the car and he was driving off, and I said, well, when did you move this gym equipment? And I kept on asking them. I must have asked him about half a dozen times at least, maybe more. And he said, oh, it doesn't matter when we moved it. You know, can't we just park in here so we can visit? He said, we can visit our auntie. And I said, well, no, when did you move it? Because you've moved it from my side of the garage and you have no right to. And eventually, the lady who lives in the other flat, I very politely call her a lady, she said, oh, we moved it last night. And I said, right, well, no, this is what happened. We moved it last night and you haven't heard the last of this. I said, right, okay then, well, I'm going to call the police. And the bloke that was with her, I'm assuming her nephew, he said, oh, don't be stupid, or don't be silly, stupid, silly, whatever, you know, just some pejorative. And I did go up, actually, and call the police, which is something that I don't ordinarily do. But I wanted an official log of what had happened. You know, and I'm giving you detail by detail of this because it's still quite fresh, because it literally happened about 2 hours ago. And now, you know, there'll be toings and froings. And of course, I could have sort of ignored it. But you know what? I'm done with being passive. I'm done with just saying, oh, you know, it's not that big a deal. But if you live your life that way, then I'm afraid that people will take advantage of you. They just will. And what I do see is a lot of people full of demands and orders, but absolutely no desire to have resolution or conversation or negotiation. And I observe people behaving in whatever way they so choose. but then have a terrible problem with with not with people doing their own thing as well, especially when it comes to border disputes, and you can understand why we have political problems like immigration, all this kind of stuff. You can understand where it comes from, because it starts in a tiny way like this with a garage, and then it might be a village, it might be a city, it might be a country, it might be a continent. You can understand how all this stuff happens. The most important thing is that you give yourself permission, not that you even need permission, give yourself the permission to stand up for yourself. Don't let people walk all over you. Don't let people take advantage of you, and stand up actually for what's right. I think that's the most important thing. And it can feel very, very, it can feel frightening, and you can sort of be faced with people and you don't know how they're going to respond, because I'll be honest, the guy, her nephew, he wasn't a small chap. he wasn't, he didn't look like a pushover, to be honest. But the great thing about having a dad that's from the south and living in the north is that I'm taller than most people, so height supremacist. But jokes aside, it can feel intimidating. But do you know what feels better? Is actually standing your ground, being self-determined, and saying what you need to say. Because if people can do them, you can do you.